Chris Pourciau, thank you so much for joining me on Louisiana Lefty.
Glad to be here.
Well, I've been trying to get you on for so long, so I'm excited to finally have you here. We have an election happening in a few days, and I wanted to get your opinion on that. Early voting and absentee voting are already happening all across the country. If you had to choose one issue that was your most important issue this election cycle, what would you say that it is?
Ooh, one issue.
Yeah, you can name more if you want, but do you have a top issue? I'm not saying you need to be a single issue voter. I'm just saying is there one that's top of mind?
I mean, I think the issue on everybody's mind right now, I feel, is reproductive justice. It's not the issue that I'm like as on top of as probably others that you've had in the past. But I think it's the one that I think that I like sort of am looking at, and I think it's one of those issues that a lot of people are really into right now. I think, you know, kind of more on a macro scale, my issue is GOTV. I think it's sort of a, you know, and I'm sure we'll get to it later, but it is something that I worry about, or I think about a lot in this cycle, more than just like a, you know, criminal justice reform or something very specific.
Voter turnout.
Voter turnout, I think, is something I've been thinking pretty hard on.
Have you been following like the national races that? I'm asking more specifically about the ones that are going to impact who holds the House and Senate.
Yeah, I do. I've been following some of that, sort of like the races like in Nevada and in Georgia, some of the stuff, you know, the races that are going to kind of get close. I mean, I think it feels sort of, and I'm just going on what I'm reading and what I watch on TV, but it feels like it's going to come down to like a few races and that are probably going to lean Democratic Senate and Republican, you know, House, but like, you know,
voter turnout can,
voter turnout, right?
All that, yeah.
But yeah, and I guess that's sort of part of my thinking on why I think voter turnout is really it's also like the long game too. Like it's the one that I think is going to affect us, not just this year, but obviously next year.
And do you feel like Democrats have successfully made the case for staying in control in Washington, D.C.?
Ooh, I mean, yes and no. I think there's definitely like, you know, what's the word people have been using around New Orleans, like malaise, sort of in some ways for, you know, it feels like it's, I don't know. I feel like this is like 2019 with Sean Bell and sort of like 2020 with Biden, where it's like, it's been sort of, it felt slow all summer, and it felt like, you know, things didn't really pick up until like the last month or so, last couple of months. And I think like the Democrats have been making some policy changes that Biden has been pushing that are, you know, that are pretty popular, you know, agenda items. But I mean, all of that's happened recently, right? You know, and so it's sort of like in Louisiana, it feels like it doesn't matter, or it does matter, but it's like, is this gonna be the thing that's gonna swing this race for a Democrat statewide for us? Like, I don't know if, you know, if that's the case, but you know, we're not voting for Biden, we're voting for like, you know, you know, somebody in your district or somebody in your state. So I don't know if that's gonna swing it, but in other places it might, you know.
Well, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we did in the unanimous jury campaign that I think made that successful, that I don't see happening for some of the Democratic races. But I also heard Charles Blow from the New York Times. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he made a comment the other day that really spoke to me, where, because I feel like we're in this existential moment where, like, if the Democrats don't keep control nationally, some things we've been sitting on for years because of Manchin and Sinema, we haven't been able to pass, like John Lewis Voting Rights Act or the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and things that I think our folks really would like to see passed. So we need that extra push to get some more people to push those things through, because the House has been passing them, Senate can't pass them. And I'm kind of like feeling like I want to shake people some and just be like, are you paying attention? Do you realize, like, the moment we're in, and the existential crisis for democracy? And Charles Blow made this comment about, like, people can't live forever in trauma. Like, their bodies literally cannot take it. They have to go back to living their lives, their day-to-day lives. And I was like, yeah, I get that. So I get how, while I'm sort of panicked about it, I get why people maybe aren't, like you're saying, there's this malaise, and I think that's part of it.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, national politics always sort of just, I think, are sometimes juicier than what we have at home. And I mean, lately though, like in the last couple of years, it's definitely like no shortage of drama, but
yeah, right.
But like, you know, previously though, it definitely felt like, you know, you see things that, especially like if you consider yourself like a progressive, you know, it is more interesting to see, you know, what is happening with like an AOC than, you know, sort of like what we have here, which is not necessarily things that align with, that totally align with the progressive, right?
We're making some concessions here. And look, I made the case a lot this season in particular about how, while all these local elections, I think the PSC race for us is,
oh my gosh,
the PSC races, sorry, are really huge races this year.
Nobody's talking about them. It's right. Crazy.
But I also, the amount of federal dollars we're getting into Louisiana from the Biden administration and this democratically controlled Congress is so tremendous. That to me makes the case that we have to pay attention to who's in control of DC. So that feels to me like Louisiana's investment in who keeps the power there should be pretty high.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I definitely feel like our connection to Washington right now is stronger with who we have out there than what like our connection would be if it were a Republican controlled Congress, or Republican, even if we, you know, so much as get a like Republican president. Like, I just feel like that connection's never going to be stronger, or it's not going to be stronger for a while, regardless of what happens in the future. And so it is important that we keep, at least for Louisiana, it's important that we keep what's here. Like, I don't think John Kennedy has any like sway with any of the powerful Republicans. I don't think he's like even though he will ride or die for them, you know, but like he doesn't, I don't think anybody's going to do any favors for him. You know, same thing with Bill Cassidy, Scalise, maybe like if Trump gets back in, but like that's, you know, there's so many other things that have to happen before we even get to that. And it wasn't like Scalise was giving us all these like, you know, all this help when he was the whip and he was, you know, one of Trump's guys. And it was like, we didn't see the bare fruit from that, you know, the same way as like Troy did in 6 months of work, you know?
Yeah. Well, so is your prediction, if you were predicting, would you say Democratic Senate, Republican House?
That's my prediction. Okay. I think we're gonna get probably Democratic Senate, Republican House.
Okay. I will not yet concede that myself.
Okay, no.
But I totally get where you're coming from. Well, sit tight, and we're going to get to talking about unanimous juries and all things Louisiana in just a minute.
Right on.